Hello, Professor Wheeler. My name is Amora Sun. This is my CIS3367 final project. For my final project, I would like to use the tool Solver to examine how to optimize business targets to meet business objectives, as well as income analysis so we can have a better visualization as far as the different goals that we need to achieve to obtain the business objectives. So here we have a set of data that's taken from a hospitality management company, which I actually currently run, but some of the numbers here regarding the rental prices that we pay, as well as the daily rates that we would sell per night, is slightly altered. So here we have a list of revenue expenses, which include total fixed costs as well as total variable costs that would help us find out what our net income would be. So in this case, we would like to achieve the net income goal of $20,000 per month. And we would have to figure out the average days leased per month we would need in order to achieve that goal. So by using the tool in the Data tab of the What If analysis, Goal Seek, we are able to set our goal, which in this case would be our net income, of cell D19 to value 20,000 by changing cell D4 to find out the number of days that we would have to lease per month out to tenants for us to achieve our net income goal. So the Goal Seek status shows that the target value of 20,000 in net income would result in the average days leased per month to be above 23 days in order for us to reach this net income. A great way to visualize this information in a format of a table would help us see the price adjustments that we would need to make and the number of days that we need to sell and what kind of income that would produce. So by doing that, we can create a table. In this case here, we've already set this cell here equal to the net income, which is 20,000 here, and it's already formatted to a customized formatting so that it would not be visible and confuse anybody that's looking at the data. So we would create this data table by selecting this portion of the cells, and we will go ahead to go to data table. Our row input cells, we would like to compare the number of days leased versus average daily price and what the outcome would be. So for the row input cell, we would like to put the average daily rate per room. In the column input cell, we will put the average days leased per month, which from 0 goes to 30, and we press OK to see the numbers that we would be achieving. So if you see on the bottom here, for each of the prices respectively, if we were to have 100% occupancy, these are actually very, very high numbers. But we come back to just to factor in that if all of this is even possible. So for the average daily rate per room, we have 175 is just a variable that we set the number as. Average rooms per unit, these would be 2-bedroom apartments, and the total number of units, say we have 5 apartments with 2 bedrooms each, and at which we can sell 175 per room for that unit, which you would multiply by 2. In this case, the gross revenue here would be the number of nights that we sell at the price per room, number of rooms per unit, and the total number of units would give us the gross revenue. In the expenses here, we would take the total monthly lease, which is the lease of the 5 units in total, plus the setup cost that we would need per unit, which we would spread overall in terms of furniture and moving costs over time of 1 year, and then per month this is the overhead we're looking at. The utilities and inventory per unit, the fixed cost of the cleaning fee per unit, we're looking at $35, admin fee of $30. And this, granted, again, this is cost that we're looking at over a 1-month period. So the total variable cost here, we would need to take the sum of the cleaning fee per unit. So we need to multiply this by the number of units as well as the admin fee per unit. So we have to multiply by the total number of units to yield the total variable cost, and the net income would be a gross revenue minus the total fixed plus the variable cost, netting us this income. So a great way, in addition to the table, in visualizing our performance here, would be for us to set conditional formatting to the data set given here, so we're able to see how we're performing and where we need to be. So if we were to highlight the cells and we were to set the rules to show us anything greater than 0 to show us in green, and for anything less than 0 to show us in red. So as you can see from the income analysis, depending on the prices that we set per room, per night, this would help us understand how we would perform. But then keep in mind, the 150, this actually column means that it will be $150 per room for all of the 5 units. So it will be an optimized mix of all of these pricing that will go depending on the season and on the market. So this we see is more of a generalized visualization, which would lead us to the sheet here, Max Profit by Solver, where the same set of information for the 5 properties now listed as A, B, C, D, and E, we will be able to use the tool Solver and give many more constraints for us to identify where we need to be, what we need to achieve to attain certain business objectives. For the tool Solver that's in the Analyze tab is not readily available in your Excel ribbon, which you would have to go and add in the options under File, which already has been added. So here, all of the constraints have already been added. So I'll just go through the list and explain what they mean. So we wanted to set the objective of C14, which is our total profit per month, to $30,000 by changing variable cell C7 to G7, which is the days booked that we want to find, which is the occupancy rate per property to achieve that goal. So the constraints, the list here was done by adding a constraint, and this is where you would be able to set the different cells or a range of cells with these conditions of what you need them to be. So to explain here, I was able to, unlike in the income analysis, to set a lot more constraints to help me really zero in on the numbers that I need to target in order to perform more optimally. So just to go through the list, because this was already added previously, I wanted to make sure that all of the listing price per unit per day would be greater than a certain number. And the cost per unit per day, which is the rent that I pay, would be less than a certain number. As well as setting the days booked to be less than 30 days, because you don't want it to go up to 50 days because there aren't that many days in a month. So with all of these constraints given here, we go ahead use the Solver tool, which produces the outcome of where we need to be in order for us to achieve a $30,000 profit per month. So by examining our answer report, which is generated by Excel, we're able to see that for us to achieve the final add value or profit goal of 30,000, we would have to have these number of days occupied, which actually is quite ambitious. But the good thing is that we do have some wiggle room between the 16 days of property C. That means we can have more of this property rented and less of the other properties rented, so we can play around with the pricing strategy for us to achieve this goal. So this concludes my final project, and thankfully I was able to learn how to use the solver tool to help me identify where the targets need to be. With all of these multiple constraints, I was able to narrow down on the specific numbers I needed, so I would be able to perform better to have a more successful business. Thank you, Professor Wheeler.